after getting a chance to speak to our next guest for the first time in Perth with Casper, I just had to have him back on the show. World Championship kickboxer, CKB coach, analyst, commentator, and the list goes on. Mike Angove, thank you so much for joining me back on Submission Radio.
No problem, my pleasure. Always happy to help you guys.
So, Mike, I want to get right into it because Israel versus Dricus obviously didn't go the way that you guys had hoped, but there were a lot of positives in Israel's performance. He looked devastating. He looked quick. Physically, he looked great. What kind of takeaways can you take out from a fight like that? I know it didn't go the way that you guys had wanted, but, still a lot of positives there from Israel in the performance.
Yes, there's positives from that. Having a look at it, I feel like, Israel showed that he's quite capable of getting Dricus out of there, but Dricus also showed what he showed all along, which is that he's an absolute dog. He's always looking for an opportunity to win. He will never give up. He was hurt on multiple occasions in that fight. He took that victory, and he's done that again and again and again. We've seen him in other fights where he's been on the back foot, and he's found a way to win, and he's shown that indomitable will to win. So we've got to credit him for that. That said, I feel like it was a fight we probably let slip away a little bit. Just a couple of mistakes, but I think those mistakes come from a little bit of fatigue potentially, and that can be attributable to time out of the game, just making a few readjustments to what we do with our S&C. And here's the thing: we know that Dricus has a great back take. He's got a number of submissions. He's very quick to take that back, and that's something you need to be aware of the whole time. And we made that mistake, and we paid for it. But look, how does he look like he did against Strickland? Which, to be fair, there's a few issues that led to that. We would have been sitting in a different position. But Israel looks like he has the ability to come back and have a resurgence, if you like, in his career. He showed that he's more than capable of taking out anyone in that division, including Dricus. And we'll see him back in the gym very shortly, as soon as he's back from Africa, and looking to plan our next steps.
Was there anything about Dricus in that fight that surprised you guys? When we chatted before the fight, you had a good grasp on the stuff that he does well. But so as the fight was going on, anything that he did that you guys didn't expect, or anything that he did that sort of wasn't on the page for you guys as you were preparing for this one?
No. We knew that he would be well prepared. He would be very fit. We know he's got a smart camp, and he talked post-fight about, noting that, anticipating Israel attacking and looking to stay the duration and then start to come on in the latter parts of the rounds, particularly the championship rounds. We anticipated that. That's just a smart camp. We're a smart camp as well. So, it's a battle of wits between the fighters and a battle of wits between the coaches. In this case, Dricus's plan came to fruition. That said, I don't think he planned to get battered as much as he did. He was hurt to the body. He was hurt to the legs. He was definitely touched up. But you cannot question the guy's indomitable will and his ability to snatch victory wherever it comes up. He's the kind of guy you have to break both his arms, both his legs, and he's still dangerous. So, we have to take that mentality now into our own preparation. It's not that we didn't, but we have even more of an understanding there. So, there's a few adjustments we will need to make in order to, get that fight back when we face again, which I think we will. But obviously, we're probably going to have to look at one or two fights before we get there.
Yeah, Mike, when we spoke to Dricus's coach after the fight, he spoke about UFC Africa and mentioned that when it comes to the main event, the only fight that really makes sense is Dricus versus Israel, and that he might have mentioned it to Israel and some of your team after the fight. How likely do you think it is that we actually see a quick rematch between Israel and Dricus? And do you anticipate we see Israel and Dricus fight again sometimes in the future?
Look, I think the first thing we need to do is get back into the gym. Um, and just see where the UFC goes with this. The champion does have an ability to dictate, but we know that Strickland's next in line unless Dana changes his mind. And I anticipate that Izzy will be expected to win a bout, win another bout before we're talking about a title fight again. I think there's a few variables that go into play there. As I said, we'll be back in the gym. We'll be starting to prepare, and working on the things that we need to work on and adjust. And so we'll be ready, but there's not a great imperative to hurry. There's just a great imperative to get back into the gym and to work on the adjustments that we need to make. There's a difference there. There's some things we need to do. There's some work we need to do, and the direction that the UFC goes in, we will just have to roll with those punches as they come out.
Want to get your reaction on Alex Pereira putting out that photo saying, he wants to come back down to middleweight and fight Dricus at 185. I don't know if you saw that post, but what was your reaction when you saw that?
Look, to be honest, I don't give too much of a toss about different reactions from fighters. Alex has got another fight coming up. I think he's got 307 that he's headlining, so he needs to get that out of the way. It's all speculation about, what happens after that. There's water that's got to go under the bridge, so I don't take too much notice of it. I think fighters generally, because of the nature of their competitiveness, they will throw jabs and jibes out there at different times. But ultimately, it comes down to the business of the UFC, and we know that Dana's not that keen for him to go down to middleweight again, and he's got to clear out the light heavyweight division. There's a couple of things he's got to do there first. So I anticipate that that'll take place first. But I guess from Alex's point of view, if I'm to sit in his mind, he knows that Izzy stopped him, knocked him out cold in the last fight. So perhaps that's sitting there if he beats the guy that beats that just beat Israel. That's something that might draw Israel back to the table. I don't know. It's all speculation, and as far as I'm concerned, I think there's a little bit of water to go under that bridge before we can start to talk about that.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I mean, maybe watching Dricus' style, Alex just thinks, hey, this is an opportunity for me to go back down and claim the second title again. But I wonder as well, when it comes to Alex and Israel's story, do you think we ever see the guys fight again? I mean, Israel kind of put an exclamation point on that rivalry by stopping him the way that he did. But I suppose everyone's always, talking about, oh, will they ever meet at 205? Will they ever meet at middleweight again? If Alex somehow does make it down, would that lead to it? What do you think if you had to sort of bet on it? Do you think we ever see those two guys cross paths again?
What I think is we've got some business to finish at middleweight. And right now our business is at middleweight. And if Alex steps in the way of that at middleweight, that may be something to consider. But we have two fighters that we need to beat. We need to beat Sean Strickland, and we need to beat Dricus du Plessis. And you've got to remember who else is coming up the chain. There's Hamzat there. Rob Whittaker's having a resurgence. Although I don't think a third fight between the two is that attractive to the UFC. So we've got a lot of business to do before we talk about Alex Pereira. You never know. You never know what can happen. But right now, I think the UFC is promoting Alex as light heavyweight champ, and Izzy's on a 2-fight dip. So we need to get back into the win column and back into title contention before we start talking about those kind of fights.
Yeah, I got to ask as well, man. I know you're a great analyst. You break down fights quite a bit and commentate. Who do you think is going to win between Sean Strickland and Dricus in this rematch that's potentially coming up next?
Yeah, stylistically, it's an interesting fight. Uh, I know that Eric and his team are very smart. You're talking about top tier coaching teams that can put together a really good strategy. They will need to nullify Sean's jab, obviously. Sean, generally speaking, doesn't have the devastating power of obviously a Pajeda, and Dricus has got a pretty damn good chin. So we know that in order for Sean to be effective, he's got to suck up your space and move forward and not allow you to get off your attacks. What Dricus did was he warmed into the fight and he started to pressure Sean and make him work backwards, which took away a lot of that style. The other thing that Dricus did is he threw punches in bunches, and you need to throw multiple punches in order to beat that Philly shell defense. Sean's not going to be hit by the first or second shot. He's got his forearm, he shoulder rolls well, he slides out of the way of the right hand quite well. So you have to put pressure on him. You have to hit him with the third and fourth shot. And Dricus did that well, certainly, for rounds 3 and 4, and the second half of round 2 of their first fight. So, it was a close fight. I thought Dricus won. You could argue it the other way. I thought Dricus won, but I suspect that having been in there with that style, he will improve next time round. That's one thing we've noticed from Dricus is he's got better at each step. He's overcome obstacles at each step. And if you look at him now, he has, he's taken out Strickland. Yes, close fight. He's taken out Rob Whittaker in dominant fashion, and he's submitted Israel. That's not a bad resume. So, I would favour him. But I would also say that, Sean's team are a very smart team. So they will be looking at ways that they can counter what Dricus has to offer.
Just going back to Perth, man, a couple of great wins for the boys. Kai Kara-France with that incredible win over Steve Ercik. And what about Dan Hooker, dude? Because I want to get your thoughts on this, right? Dan Hooker fighting to get on this card. Dan Hooker fighting to get Gamrot. Fans out there being like, why are you fighting Gamrot? You've got no chance. All sorts of people saying you're doing the wrong thing. He kind of put all the chips on the table and showed an incredible performance. Before we talk about that performance, though, just his heart, the fact that he was able to pull this off, from the perspective of belief and backing himself and you guys coming together in this and knowing what was going to happen. What does it mean for you to have a guy like Dan on the team?
Hooker, to be fair, is a once-in-a-generation fighter in terms of his mindset and in terms of his complete absence of fear. We call him a psychopath for a reason. But you also have to look at, what he's done. From a gym perspective, he got into the top 5, and then he went on I think from memory, it's a 1-3 run, where he had 3 losses. He got stopped by Arnold Allen in a lighter weight. He got clipped by Chandler, and Makachev. So you're talking about 3 first-round losses. That's, the mental fortitude to come back from that is substantial. You had some reasons for that, against Allen. Obviously he went back down a weight division. Against Chandler, he got clipped. But you're also coming out of not ideal training circumstances. The loss against Poirier, again, you're coming out of basically training out of his garage for that fight. So all those things are factors. But I think what Dan had to do is he had to, reevaluate what he was doing with his career and look at areas that he could improve and he could adjust. And, he's done that. He's still the same savage he always was, but he's also made improvements to his technical game. And I think we have to credit Dan for that. It's that kind of resilience and perseverance, and also ability to adapt, to teach an old dog some new tricks, which gives you longevity in a career. And look, Dan has always been super tough. We know that. He has always been fearless. He doesn't care who he's got in front of him. But his preparation, his approach to developing a few new tools and refining the tools he's got is what's seen this sudden resurgence. And you don't beat the guys he's beaten, particularly the Turner fight and the Gamrot fight, both split decisions. I'd probably argue that they potentially shouldn't have been, particularly the Gamrot fight. I was surprised that was split. But those are tough guys. Those are boogeymen in the division that he's just overcome. Dan Hooker will always be the benchmark to get into the absolute cream of that crop in the lightweight division in the top 5. And both of those guys failed the test. They failed the Dan Hooker test, and that's a pretty stern test. In terms of what's next for him, hard to say, but Chandler doesn't have a great resume recently. He's not had a good run of wins. That's a fight we desperately want to get back, because I think if that had gone any longer than the first round, Chandler would have been out of there. McGregor's all over the shot, and it looks like that's that's something that Dana's fallen away from, the Chandler McGregor fight. And there's other fights in there. Can you imagine a rematch with Dustin Poirier, for example? And that was a war. So, there's plenty of options there. And Hooker is still dangerous, still very, very dangerous to anyone in that division. He still has that power to take you out with a single shot as well, So you don't forget what he did to Gilbert Burns. So, we are expecting good things from Dan coming up.
That's right, Mike. And there is nothing better than looking forward to good things coming up, like Father's Day here in Australia. And of course, our friends at Manscaped make that super easy for everybody out there with their amazing products. Code word submission gets you 20% off, supports this program, keeps the lights on. And how about this? I want you guys to meet the Handyman. The Handyman is designed for the dad who could fix anything except his unruly facial hair. If your dad is looking for a closer and smoother finish, then the Handyman Face Shaver is the perfect tool for him. It is the ultimate compact shaver that's designed for precision and convenience. What about those nose hairs? We know we all struggle with them. Well, the Weed Whacker 2.0 will sort your dad out. It's for those dads who are starting to show a little too much ear and nose hair. And of course, you have a powerful 7,000 RPM motor and a 360-degree rotary dual blade system. The Weed Whacker 2.0 helps tackle unwanted hair like a pro. Of course, don't forget about the lawnmower as well, and the beard hedger. Manscaped is your place to go for all of your Father's Day gifts this year. So jump on Manscaped now, get 20% off and free shipping with a code word submission. Change your Father's Day with our friends at Manscaped today. But Mike, I was watching the fantastic pub talk between Oscar Willis and Dan Hooker on the Mac Life right after the fight. And I saw that there was a little bit of a run-in with Hunter Campbell in the lobby, and potentially Charles Oliveira could be the next opponent. If it is Charles next, break that down for me. I know you haven't had a chance to sort of really break Charles down, but how do you see that fight going, and how do you see the guys matching up?
Yeah, I think, look, Charles is so dangerous in many areas. Obviously, his ground game, he's very aggressive with his striking, but he's also got vulnerabilities. There is a question. He runs hot and cold, and I still think he runs hot and cold, but he's very dangerous if you go down on the ground with him. Really dangerous offensively on the feet, not so good defensively. You got to be aware of what's happening on the ground. Obviously, everyone knows that. But if you show a moment of mental weakness against a guy like Hooker, he's going to suck that up and grow. So, Oliveira would need to be the best Oliveira he's ever been to compete with Dan. If there's an ounce of weakness there, Dan will suck that up like a vampire, and he'll leave Oliveira on the canvas.
Hey, I just got to go into the fight just quickly. When he's sitting on the corner in between rounds and he's yelling to you guys how he loves this shit, and there's like blood coming out of his face, and you guys are trying to talk to him. What's your reaction in that moment? Because it's got to be one of the most epic corner moments, I think, in UFC history.
Look, I think it's all, look, from a coach's point of view, it's all relative to the fighter you've got. If you've got an inexperienced guy who's an idiot and not listening and doesn't have the experience that Dan has, that might be an issue. If you've got Dan Hooker in front of you, who we know listens, who we know has a decent fight IQ, and who's embracing the persona of what's making him great. What is making him great? No fear, embracing the fire. He's happy to be a fireman. He's happy to walk into the trenches, and that's something that gives Dan Hooker strength. So, you have to give that one to Caesar, if you like. I thought it's a great moment. It's a great moment in the context of who Dan is and where he is with his career. It's not something you would take from every fighter. But for Hooker right now, for what he's doing, for the wars that he's undertaking, and for the wars that he's winning, I think that was very apt and very appropriate.
All right. Well, Mike, I really appreciate your time. Guys, make sure to follow Mike on social media to check out everything that's going on at Lightning_Mike_MMA. And of course, a lot of the big fights coming out of CKB, Dana White Contender Series, Carlos all big, of course, Kai Kara France, hopefully title shot next. And the list goes on. Doing an absolutely astounding job as always, Mike. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Cheers, guys. Happy to be there.